Hello everyone. Today I would like to show you the game between Levon Aronian, 2809 with the white pieces, versus Pentala Harikrishna with the black pieces. And this is from round 6 of the Geneva FIDE Grand Prix tournament. So Aronian started out with c4. Now Aronian is a specialist in this department. He's defeated Topalov, Arkady Knightage, Karyakin, and Nepomniachtchi, just to name a few. Gelfand is another, although that was in a blindfold game, but he has a vast experience in this opening. Pentala responded with the principled e5, knight c3, knight f6, knight c3, knight f3, knight c6, g3. And this is basically 4 knights variation of the Sicilian, but in reverse. So the technical name is English opening 4 knights variation, but it's very similar to a reverse Sicilian. d5, this is all known theory, just striking in the center. Knight takes d5, bishop g2, knight b6, castle, bishop e7, d3, castle. And here I like to point out that although White's position looks, really, pretty much innocuous, it's like a reverse dragon formation. There's a lot of poison in this variation, and if black doesn't know what he's doing, it's easy to quickly get a disadvantage and go into a bad game here. I just want to give you, excuse me about that noise, I just want to give you an example of Aronian's game. I'm not going to show you the whole game, but against Nepomniachtchi that took place a few years ago. In that game, from bishop e7, Aronian played a3 in the typical line, b4 expanding on the queen side, as in the Sicilian if you play it as black. Bishop e6, d3, f6. Black fortifies the center, right, as e-pawn, in anticipation of that. And I'll just go through this real quick. Okay, typical idea. Controlling c5, and with that bishop that's sleeping right now in g2, white exerts tremendous pressure on the queen side. Now here Aronian takes with the c pawn. Now queen takes is possible, but here is another great idea that often occurs in the position. That pawn on c5 is not weak for white, but it acts as annoying hindrance to black's b pawn. So almost no matter what black does on the queen side concerning his pawns, he's going to end up with some type of weakness there, either on the b file or c file. If he advances the b pawn and white captures, then the c file is vulnerable once again. I just want to show you real quick. This is Aronian with the white pieces, Nepomniachtchi in 2009. And I just want to get to, and this is typical. This is what white wants. Bust up the queen side. And then you see how Aronian starts probing these pawns here. Okay, and then you see right here there's the outside passer for white. It's 2 weak double pawns, and white's pawn is weak too on the c file, but eventually, even if that's captured, black will be able to pile up on the c file and harass the remaining pawns. And as you can see, Nepomniachtchi wind up winning that pawn. Great tactic right here, causing the queen to be distracted from protecting the rook. And here, Aronian actually missed a fantastic, fantastic tactical opportunity right here. Notice the pin on this pawn. You could just simply attack this knight. For instance, knight d1, rook d1. Just making some random moves here. Rook e8, and queen h5. This double attack here, and then this pawn will soon be running free. But in the actual game, we had queen c4, c5, and you see the build up and pressure on the c pawn while white calmly waits with his a pawn. Then you have bishop versus knight, and these are small advantages. And black is already in extreme trouble here. For instance, after f3, which was played in the game, knight g5, and the pawn just fell. And after a valiant struggle by Nippon Niachi, he wind up losing this game. And that was just to show you an example of the typical play that can occur and what white's plans are. A nice long positional game where white puts tremendous pressure on the queen side, and black makes little concessions here and there, and then the position finally collapses. So black has to be very active. There's different plans that black can do. You know, he can try to counterattack on the queen side, or he can try to attack on the king side. It's a good example of how to play against this by Svidler. This game right here, again, this is going to be real brief. Aronian Svidler, 2008, from the same position, same plan, a3, b4. And Svidler played an early knight d4. Of course, taking would be bad for black here. Excuse me, bad for white. This is a typical idea. And now, any type of advance from this pawn will leave the whole pawn complex weak. You know, for instance, after any type of capture here. So let's just say bishop d5, and let's say make this move. And then there's a target right here for black. Not saying black is better, but he's just comfortable. So that game went knight d2 and c6, blocking the bishop here. And Svidler plays very careful not to allow his pawns to become damaged here. He plays very carefully. He plays b6, and this is what I call the scorched earth policy. He basically gets everything off of this diagonal. So the bishop, although it's has great potential, it's not actually hitting anything. And if you watch some of my early videos, I talk about the different ways of dealing with bishops. I think there's 3 or 4 ways. One is trade them off, of course. You see the famous plan, bishop to h6, trading off the bishop on g7. That's like the most popular one. Then there's the one with biting on granite, where you're trying to just block the bishop's effectiveness. Then there's the scorched earth policy, which is here, where you just clear the diagonal where there's really no targets. I'll just fast forward real quick. That's a real positional game here. And then Svidler winds up getting his break, and then he was able to draw. As you see, his pawn structure is perfect. There's really no weakness that Aronian was able to attack there, and that game ended in the draw. Okay, so with those 2 things in mind, let's go back to the game that took place today. So from this position, d3, castle, bishop e3, bishop e6, rook c1, and f5. So we see one of the most aggressive plans from black. And again, if you play the Sicilian, this kind of looks similar to like a Grand Prix attack, or like a closed Sicilian variation where white would often play, this early f4. All right. So a3, white starts his counterplay in the queen side. King h8, just getting off the diagonal. Again, a lot of these are all Sicilian themes. That's why I said it's basically a reverse Sicilian. So king h8, b4, a6, analogous to b5, a3. You get the point. Rook e1, queen e8. It's obvious black's plan again is to attack on the king side. With f4, you know, e4, f4, he would love to open the f file if he can, but in here he seeks to transfer the queen over to the h file, sometimes the g file, and then of course there's always that option of the old rook lift from rook f8 to f6, joining in the king side attack. All right, mind you of a Dutch defense, those type of positions. So that's black's plan, right? Transferring heavy pieces over to the king side. White's plan is to, as I showed you, is to create weakness on the queen side and kill white over there. So queen d2, bishop d6, and here it is. Bishop takes b6, c takes b6, d4, e takes d4, knight takes d4, rook d8. Excuse me. Knight takes e6, queen takes e6, queen a2. So we see already Aronian basically trying to slow things down, anticipating attacks from from black, and trying to slow black's attack and prospects down. He would love to go into an endgame. His pawn structure is perfect. He has his beautiful bishop on g2. And of course, Harikrishna knows this, so he plays queen h6. He continues along with his plan, which is to attack. Aronian doesn't want the f file to get open, so he tries to, perform some preemptive measures. He plays f4 so that black doesn't play f4. And now, to me, here's the turning point of the game. Is Harikrishna plays f5 here. Excuse me, not f5. I got my files and ranks mixed up today. a5, attacking the b4 pawn. Right, big deal. Okay, and of course, a move like that, is not what Aronian wants to do. Just straightening out the black the black pawns. Okay, so he plays b5, and of course this looks like a gift because the pawn is just hanging here on b7. The knight moves, and this is what's deadly about the move, is that it looks so normal. If you play it in English, it's such a normal move to play automatically. b4, b5, driving the knight away. Okay, such a simple concept, and he's probably played it hundreds of times, including blitz. So now the downside of this move, right, we have to look at it, is look at black's pieces here. Here this bishop is on d6, but the bishop is biting on granite here, right? The bishop is not doing anything really important there. Then you look at the other diagonal, the bishop is biting on granite. So what Harikrishna wants to do by provoking this move is give his bishop, a better square. So he's willing to, kind of give white a little bit more space to improve his piece. And by improving this bishop, the rook behind it also improves. So after this pawn advances, the c5 square is open for the bishop, which he plays bishop c5. This is an improvement, and this is why I believe in this position b5 was an error by Aronian, because what happened afterward was all of black's minor pieces improved immediately after that move. So therefore, I think knight b5 was probably what the doctor ordered with the equality, right? Because after a takes, knight d6, queen takes, and A takes b4. Now black can win this pawn, right, with knight b4, but just like in the game I showed you, I think it was the Svidler, either the Svidler game, where there was a double pawns. I forget which game it was, but anyway, it was black had the double pawns, and then Levon was able to just simply line up on the C file in that game and start capturing those pawns. So those double pawns are like low quality, so it's not a big deal. And this is probably equal right here. So instead of b5, which forces black's pieces into better positions, I recommend knight b5 here as an improvement. This move right here. Bishop takes c6 is also possible, but you know, I will be a little more weary of giving up that bishop at this point in the game. But those two moves, either knight b5 or bishop takes c6 here, again with equality. So to me, this is the turning point of the game right here. b5, bishop c5 check, e3, king h1 is possible, but then perhaps bishop f2 after that. Maybe king h1 is the best, just getting, you know, just moving the king out the way. But Aronian played e3 here, and now again, this is what I'm talking about, driving the pieces to better positions. Knight e5, and there's a terrible tactic here, and this is why, matter of fact, let me go back here. This is the reason definitely king h1 is better, because after king h1, knight e5 is not possible here. So let me say that for the record right now. King h1 is the move. E3 is actually a mistake. So e3 and now knight e5. The reason why knight e5 is so powerful is not only because of the obvious fork attempt right here on d3, but if f takes, then bishop takes f3. Excuse me, e3. That wins right away because of the rook. So after knight e5, Aronian played rook c d1. Knight g4 is putting more pressure on the position, and we can see the weakness of this pawn, as this pawn is attacked and h2 is also attacked. h3, and now here again, Pentala is practically winning here. He played the move knight takes e3. I found an improvement looking at this game in analysis. Bishop takes e3 check. Okay, if king f1, then simply knight h2, and this drives the king out in the open. King e2, and then you can just play bishop takes f4, rook fe8 check, and then if knight e4, then you can simply just snatch the knight up or get fancy and play rook c8. Rook c8. The reason why rook c8 is important is because it avoids the trade of rooks here. So for instance, rook c8. Just give you an example. Black trades on his own terms, and now he plays queen h5, which is important. Check, king e3, f takes, and then queen b2 by white. Why queen b2? Because black intends on making the maneuver knight f3 here. Of course, bishop takes f3 is out of the question. Knight h4, queen g6, and again, I'm just showing you what black's plan is. That's why you don't see white's moves, and you can see this double attack on the bishop, and then queen g3. This is what black wants to play, basically mate white. This is why queen h5 is important to stop the plan of knight f3, knight h4, queen g6, and queen g3 by black. This is why queen b2 happens, because after knight f3, then queen e2 can be played in order to trade queens, or basically keep black from moving his knight here. But still, you're still winning is black after queen h4 and move like queen e7. King is exposed, and you have the better ending. Okay, so again, bishop takes e3 is just winning right here. Show you another continuation that's possible. Again, just f takes e4. And queen f7. Again, queen f7. The reason is to stop the intention of black to play the move queen h5 check. If king f2, then the rook would just drop. So just want to make sure that I'm explaining these moves so it just doesn't look random. Queen f7, rook c8, again with the same idea of avoiding the trade, because this time if this rook is gone, then queen takes e8, and that's why you see these funny looking moves. But again, black is still winning. So it's understandable that I'm sure Pentala looked at bishop takes e3, but it's understandable why he played knight takes e3, which still gives black a big advantage. Bishop takes e3 is just winning flat out, but knight takes e3 gives a big advantage still. And of course, moves white is forced into a line, so sometimes it's easier to see more forcing lines. So rook takes d8, rook takes d8, king h2. Pentala plays g5, which is really committal, and again the winning g5 was good, but winning is queen h5. And what I like about queen h5 is that it attacks without being like a real committal move. Say if the queen move was wrong, you always can just move the queen back. But if g5 is incorrect, you can't move that pawn back. And it's funny because I remember reading something about Alakhan, or reading a comment I think that he made about making like attacking moves but not committing moves. Like you're still attacking in a position, but you're making, basically you're moving with the pieces, so that if that move is incorrect, you always can move the piece around. Like, yeah, you might lose a tempo or whatever, but you haven't like compromised the position, the structure of the position. And that's what this reminds me of. Matter of fact, when I first saw it, that's what I thought of. Is wow, g5 is committal. Like, you're just opening up the diagonal to the king and stuff like that. And boy, if you're wrong, this is, there's no turning back from here. So again, improvement here, again, winning is just queen h5. And let me explain to you why queen h5 is important here. Queen h5 protects the e8 square, because in this line, this rook is going to wind up getting involved. And you see with the king tucked in the corner, this rook might have a chance to check back here. So queen h5 does that. And I'll show you again black's plan. Right? Black wants to play rook d3, knight g4, king h1. Of course, it's forced. Then take on g3, followed by rook takes h3, bishop takes h3, queen takes h3, and of course mate. Alright, you got that? Again, I'm just showing you a few moves by black in a row so that you can see the plan, instead of me just saying, oh, rook, queen h5, and just, I'm showing you first what black wants to do. So again, rook d3, followed by knight g4 check, driving the king away from the h2 pawn. Rook takes g3, then sacrifice the exchange, and mate. So now you can see why queen h4 is important, because here, right, if rook takes g3, if the queen, queen h5, if the queen wasn't on this diagonal, then white would just be able to mate right there. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, so queen h5 again was winning. And of course, this is with white being able to defend against the idea. So after queen h5, queen e2, then the queen would drop back. Of course, you don't want to trade queens. Knight b1, and then black just simply wins by going into an endgame. Knight takes g2, king takes g2. You play the move h6. This frees the rook up from the back rank, creates loft for the king. Say h4. These are just sample lines. Queen d5, queen b3, queen e6, a4, just fixing the a3 pawn and protecting your queen, creating more threats. And this is a powerful move, threatens the rook here and mate here on h1, so the exchange must be given up. And like I said, it's just a sample line, and black is just winning, right, easily. Okay, so but in the game, instead of queen h5, which is winning, Pentala played g5, f takes g5, which is forced, right? Queen takes g5, and now here's a critical moment for Aronian, which I think he still lost here, but this was his best chance to draw, and this is to try to trade pieces off, is by playing a move like knight takes d5, knight d5, challenging this most advanced and annoying piece in the position. And for example, knight takes, bishop takes, f4, threatening, of course, the the terrible checks on g3. But now white can try to exploit this diagonal, playing queen b2, and look where the king is. This forces the queen trade, and now Aronian can try to rely on this opposite bishop's ending. Again, these are just some sample lines, right? He might be still busted here, but that's it's better than the alternative. So after knight d5, which I believe is his best shot, knight takes g2 is an option here. King takes g2, and again, white is just going to try to get on this diagonal right here. So let's just say queen g7. The rook is attacking the knight. Knight got to bounce. f4. Rook g8. And this is basically like the only move here. Actually, queen b3 is possible, but this is better. And I think that, again, white is still winning here. Black is still winning here. I apologize for getting the colors mixed up. And again, taking advantage of that move g5 earlier, opening up this diagonal. This forces the exchange of queens. And again, after rook d8, black has a huge advantage still, but it's a little bit more difficult. And you have bishop versus knight instead of bishop, the opposite color bishop ending. But I think it's a little bit more difficult, and the game would have definitely been longer. In the game, queen e6 was played by Aronian, and Pentala played fantastic move. It's just f4, attacking g3, and the king is looking. It's funny because black's king is exposed, but white can't attack the black king. But white's king looks safer, but is under attack because of the placement of the pieces. And again, remember that move b5 we talked about earlier, allowing that bishop to go to c5. That's a killer. And then it allowed the knight the move after that, which was after bishop c5 check. Instead of just tucking the king in the corner with h1, Aronian tried to play e3, which allowed the tactical shot knight e5. So that b5 move was the cause of all of these problems. Here, Aronian played knight e4. Again, trying to deal with both problems. Queen here and bishop here, and protecting this at the same time. Hopefully looking forward to a trade. g4 is incorrect because it's simply f3. And the problem here is after f3, the queen is able to come in via the dark squares, and it's going to be over. If bishop takes f3, then just queen f4 check, winning the bishop. If bishop h1, queen f4 check, again infiltrating with the queen. So g4 is out of the question. So knight e4 is what Aronian chose. So basically only move here, but then just simply queen g7. What I like about this move is that white can't really make any progress, because say if he tried to trade the piece off, then it'd just be mate in 2. So now he plays g4 with an improved variation, because now there's no f3 followed by queen f4 check here. However, Pentala has another winning move here. He played knight c2 here, again, which is a good practical move, intending knight d4. But here, this knight takes g2 is winning. So for example, knight takes g2, king takes g2. The king is now naked on the second rank, queen b4, and you just invade with the pieces. How can he defend? So for example, king h1, f3, threatening mate on g2. That's forced. Again, there's that diagonal again, right? But then you just have a good endgame after this. Not good endgame, a winning endgame. There's no stopping. Ain't no stopping us now. There's no stopping these the pawns from advancing on the queen side. Again, you got the bishop versus knight in open position, and that is a wrap. Soon the king will march out. Right, we had the knight tied up at c2, and then again, if you're a strong player, you win these type of endgames easily. This is easy. Okay, if this is not easy, you got to study your endgames. Okay, so knight takes g2 is just a clear, just clear win right here. What else can we show you here? Yeah, so a4 is winning. Of course, bishop e7. All of this stuff is just winning. So he picked knight c2, attacking the rook, attacking the pawn. Good moves. And sometimes it's like you have so many choices. But he's playing the game of his life against Aronian. I mean, he didn't just like beat Aronian. He like tore him up. You know what I mean? He beat him up. It's like they say in boxing. They say you could win a fight, like a close fight by decision, or sometimes they say, fighter X got beaten up tonight. Like that means you took a whooping. That's what this was. Like one of them. No disrespect, but it's just that's just how it went down. Knight d4 was played. Okay, so the rook protected itself, and then knight d4, queen f6, and again, this is kind of analogous to what I just showed you. Aronian is forced to go into an inferior endgame. The a3 pawn drops, setting the a5 pawn free. Aronian captures the b7 pawn, which is valueless anyway. So h4, and the pawn begins to run. Bishop e5, setting up the pattern with the knight on c2, bishop on e5, supporting the pawn advance on the queen side. And there it is, knight c2. So notice that there will be no blockading this pawn. The queening square is fully controlled, and there's no way for white to get to a2 really to stop this. For instance, if bishop a2 trying to stop this advance, then just simply move like knight e3, check, works. And also just simply bishop takes f6, and then following up with rook takes d5. There's really no stopping that. And rook c1 is too slow. And so after knight c2, Aronian gave it up, forced to resign. So it's a great game, long analysis. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something, and please like and subscribe. And I'm gonna look at some other games from this round. So I'll see you on the next video.